I jolted awake in a sterile, blindingly white room, completely strapped to a medical bed with robotic arms pulling feeding tubes directly out of my body. My mind was a complete blank. A sterile computer voice constantly demanded my name, but I couldn't even remember how I got here. Looking around, the horror immediately set in. 2 other medical bunks were occupied by what was left of my crewmates, nothing but mummified corpses. Slowly, fragments of my past began to flicker in my mind. I finally remembered my name. I am Ryland Grace, a simple middle school science teacher. Through a small porthole, I conducted a makeshift gravity experiment and realized an impossible truth. I wasn't just off Earth, I was in another solar system entirely. Flashbacks hit me like a truck. I remembered a global panic. A microscopic, energy-eating space algae we called astrophage was literally draining our sun's power. Earth was facing a guaranteed ice age. Billions would starve. The United Nations gave a ruthless woman named Strat absolute immunity to solve the crisis. Strat drafted me, a disgraced former biologist, to figure out how astrophage worked. We discovered it stored insane amounts of energy, making it the ultimate spacecraft fuel. We found one star system nearby, Tau Ceti, that wasn't dimming. Humanity pooled all its remaining resources to build the Hail Mary, a massive one-way suicide ship. I was never supposed to be on this ship. But when an accidental explosion killed the main science crew right before launch, everything changed. Because I had the immunity gene to the coma-inducing drugs required for the trip, Strat literally held me at gunpoint, strapped me down, and forced me aboard. Back in the present, the crushing loneliness almost broke me. I was the absolute last hope for Earth, and I had no idea what to do next. Suddenly, my ship's radar started screaming. Another vessel, massive and made entirely of strange, dark stone, dropped into orbit right beside me. I was paralyzed with shock. This wasn't a human ship. First contact was happening right now, out in the middle of deep space. The alien ship extended a docking tunnel to mine. I built a makeshift airlock partition, terrified but desperately curious about who or what was inside. Out stepped a massive, 5-legged, spider-like creature with a rocky carapace. He lived in a superheated, pitch-black ammonia atmosphere and couldn't even see light. He communicated through musical chords, like a synthesizer. I named him Rocky, and using computers, we painstakingly built a shared dictionary to finally talk. Rocky was an engineer whose star was also dying from astrophage. Just like me, he was the only survivor of his crew. We were exactly the same. We decided to combine forces. I built a pressurized, superheated glass dome inside my ship so Rocky could work right alongside me in my lab. Scanning the nearby planets, we realized one specific world, Adrian, had a massive astrophage population, but its levels were mysteriously perfectly balanced. There had to be a natural predator keeping it in check. If we could find that predator, we could take it back and save both our solar systems. We flew our combined ships deep into the dangerous, hyperdense atmosphere of Adrian. It was a terrifying, ship-rattling descent to scoop up atmospheric samples. Disaster struck. The intense gravity and atmospheric pressure ripped a hole in my ship. We started spinning wildly out of control, alarms blaring everywhere. I was thrown across the room and knocked instantly unconscious. In a desperate act of loyalty, Rocky breached his own protective dome to save me. He dragged me to safety, but Earth's oxygen-rich air was practically acid to him. He was severely burned, clinging to life, proving his friendship was absolute. I stabilized him using my limited medical supplies, working tirelessly until he recovered. When he finally woke up, our bond was stronger than ever. I examined the samples we barely escaped with. We hit the jackpot. Inside was a microscopic amoeba that actively hunted and devoured the astrophage parasite. I named the predator Tomoeba. But there was a massive problem: it couldn't survive the nitrogen gas we used to keep it contained in the fuel tanks. We spent agonizing weeks selectively breeding the Tomoeba, forcing it to evolve until it could successfully survive and reproduce in a nitrogen-rich environment. We finally had a cure that worked. We divided the super amoeba between us. It was time to say our painful goodbyes and save our respective planets. Rocky detached his rocky ship, flashing a final salute. I watched my only friend in the universe jump into the blackness of space, heading for home. I prepared my automated probes to shoot the cure back to Earth. My mission was a success. I was going to die out here, but humanity would live. But as I ran a final check on my microscopic cultures, my blood ran totally cold. The Tomoeba had evolved way beyond what I intended. It hadn't just developed a resistance to nitrogen. It had learned how to physically eat through xenonite, the alien supermaterial Rocky used to build his entire ship. Panic choked me. Rocky's fuel tanks were made of xenonite. The moment the Tomiba escaped, they would eat all his fuel, leaving him completely stranded. He was going to drift in the dark, slowly starving to death, completely failing to save his homeworld. And he didn't even know it yet. I faced the hardest choice of my life. I had just enough food to survive the trip back to Earth. I could go home a massive hero. Or, I could turn the ship around, burn the rest of my food supply as extra mass, and chase after Rocky. If I did, I would never see Earth again. Without hesitating, I packed the tiny, unmanned probes with the cure and fired them back toward Earth. My planet's fate was out of my hands now. I whipped the Hail Mary around, pushing the engines past their absolute limits. I tracked Rocky's faint infrared signature through the endless void. I caught up to him just as his ship went entirely dark. I spacewalked over, dragged him back onto my ship, and gave him the unmutated cure. He was utterly shocked I came back for him. I knew my life as a human on Earth was over, but I had saved my best friend. Years later, my life looks very different. I'm an old man now, living in a specially built, high-gravity dome on Rocky's dark, superheated alien homeworld. The sky above us, once dim and failing, is now burning bright. We saved his planet. But the question of whether Earth survived always haunted me. Today, Rocky rushed into my dome, practically vibrating with excitement. He handed me telescope data showing the sun. Earth's light had officially returned to normal. Tears streamed down my face. The probes made it. Humanity survived. I lost my home, but in the end, it was absolutely worth it. I wiped my eyes, grabbed my textbook, and smiled. It was time for class. I turned around to face a room full of eager, spider-like alien children, ready to teach science. And that's the story of how we saved our planets. Subscribe to the Spoiler Room for more exciting content like this.